How many of you have any customers that use Gmail? Anybody have customers that work with Gmail? You guys have heard of Gmail? Very cool. Well, I've just welcomed up here Shalini Agarwal. She's the product manager on Gmail that is focused on a lot of the newer initiatives, such as schema.org, which she's going to talk about. So if you've ever been in a Gmail, been in your Gmail UI and seen right across the line, which she'll show in a second, the ability to immediately RSVP in line, the kind of thing that came up several times today, the ability to add a lot more structure to email, which I'm blanking, Jason Cornwell had spoken about earlier today. She's going to talk all about that. So while you guys announced it several months ago, it's now starting to pick up a lot of steam.
Yeah.
So Shalini, again, a product manager at Gmail. I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
So I don't know how many of you have heard about this or seen this, but as Jared mentioned, there's been a lot of themes today around adding structure to emails, about increasing engagement, about email campaigns, things like that. And so obviously we're thinking about similar things, and that's why we introduced Gmail Actions and structured markup at Google I/O earlier this year. So the 4 things at Google I/O, we announced 4 different types of actions that you can add to your emails. Senders can add to their emails. So the 4 are, rating and reviewing. So let's say, someone sends that email to rate or review a product or a movie or a restaurant that they went, that their users went to. Now the user can take that action without opening the email. They can get all the information they need, and they don't have to go to another site, wait for that site to load, log in, etc. It's very simple, it's very fast. The idea is to make mail much more efficient so that users can actually do the things that they want to do with the services they care about much, much faster. And thereby increasing engagement. So rate and review is one of the actions that we introduced. We introduced RSVP, which will show you the structured information about that event, who's going, what time it is, where it is, and the ability to respond right there. I don't know how many of you have ever gotten an invitation and how many times you've gone back to that email to actually look at that information and get that information. So it's the idea is to make this much more seamless and frictionless for users and for senders. And the other 2 actions are the one-click action, which is a very generic action. It's literally one click, and you can do almost anything from it, such as, we'll see some examples later, but confirm registration to an email list, or add something to a queue or a wish list or something like that. Very simple. And then there's the go-to action, which is a shortcut button that kicks you off to another site. And the idea here is that for complex actions like checking in for your flight, you really don't need to open the email. You just click the button, go to the site, check in, and you're done. So those are the 4 types of actions that we introduced at Google I/O, and this is just the beginning, right? Imagine all the different kinds of structured markup or structured information there is in emails and actions that senders want users to take and users actually want to do. So this is just the beginning. We worked closely with schema.org to standardize a language in which we can add structure to emails and add actions to emails, and make that a standard that any client, such as many of you out here, could adopt if you wanted to. So it's very, very simple. It's all powered by schema. The sender of the email adds this schema to their email with the schema.org type, some more information about the type of action they want to include, some structured information, for example, for flights and things like that, for events. And it results in an action at the top level of the Gmail inbox, and it results in other experiences, structured cards, such as flight cards at the top, and other experiences across Google, like Google Search and Google Now. So at Google I/O, we had a whole bunch of launch partners, and since then we've had over 100 more added. And they're doing some very interesting things and finding a lot of interesting results, right? So obviously it's still early stages. We've seen some cases of up to 30% increase in engagement. That's an A/B experiment that a sender runs to say, okay, well, what is the effect of this action? What is the effect of adding this markup to my emails? And in some cases, I mean, obviously not all of them, but in some cases we've seen a 30% engagement rate increase. So that's pretty powerful, and obviously something people care about. So another example, like a specific example of an increase in engagement was the NAACP. They had an event and they wanted people to say, yes, I'm attending. And they added that button, and it was, without question, a 16% increase in the number of people who said, yes, I'm attending, based off adding a single action button to their email. So this is pretty powerful in terms of senders are really excited about these types of results. And so, some other use cases that we've seen, confirm registration has been very, very popular. So, MailChimp is one of our partners, and they have implemented this for a number of their customers. Tracking your package is something that's also very popular. Users care where their stuff is, so by adding this markup, they can figure that out pretty quickly. Paying your bill, something everyone needs to do. Call someone back if they've left you a voicemail. Someone sends you a gift card, go and view that gift card. And again, checking in for your flight. So here are just some examples of use cases that we've seen. Just in case any of you are curious, the way it works is when a sender wants to add markup to their emails, since we're in early stages, we want to review those use cases to make sure it's in line with user expectations and whatnot. But for the most part, we've seen some really interesting cases, and it's been hugely successful. And Claudio Cherubino is an engineer on the Gmail developer relations team and can tell us more about that if you have questions. So, obviously most of you are clients, are email client folks here today. So I would encourage you to think about using schema.org if you're sending emails on users' behalf to add some of the structured information. We spend a lot of time with schema.org to make sure this was standardized, so any client who wants to can use it. We worked with the schema.org board and lots of large mail clients out there to make sure that this follows everything that they want to do or they see going on in the future. So we hope that it's something that's an open standard that can be adopted more widely and drive lots of great experiences for all of our users. And for those of you, small plug, who are senders of emails out there, you may consider adding this markup to your emails, and it's pretty simple. All the instructions are at developers.google.com/gmail/actions. So that's it's pretty short and sweet. I don't know if anyone has any questions. No?
No, we do.
Oh, all right.
So when someone is not using Gmail and just any other email provider and they receive a message that has these actions in them, just what is that experience like?
So when someone's not using Gmail?
So, of course, if another provider supported actions and these schemas, then they could build that experience in for their users.
Exactly.
But currently, right now, if I'm an email sender and I send it, my Gmail users, receivers will have these actions and get to access them, but will the experience be at all different or interesting or same? Is there any problems that can occur on someone who does not have Gmail?
That's a good question, and something that we tested very carefully. But no, this is all markup in the HTML. They're just tags that are ignored if a client is not using it. And senders know that even if they're sending it to a Gmail account, a user can be using any client, right? As everyone here is well aware. So they don't change the emails. It's more of an addition to the email. And it's a regular experience, just like it was before this was launched on any other client. Mm-hmm.
Hey, is there either current support or roadmap support for Google Apps, so the kind of enterprise Gmail?
So this can be used for enterprise as well as consumer. So we are seeing a lot of interest from enterprise customers wanting to use this internal to their own domains, which we're allowing as well as sending emails to their clients, et cetera. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of very interesting internal use cases as well for this.
How about use cases that are less transactional and more promotional marketing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thus far, we focus mostly on transactional mail rather than promotional mail because, think about it as a user, right? Like you see your inbox. Every time you see one of these buttons, it should be what you want to do. If not, then you're going to A, start to ignore them, and B, just get annoyed that it's taking up more sort of mental, cognitive load, right? So we're starting with mostly transactional mail. I think over time, we will figure out how to make this work for promotional mail. but by introducing things like CTR modeling and whatnot to make sure that when a user sees this button, it really is what they want to do. But today, it's mostly transactional focused.
Are there any kind of trust or verification issues with this? Do you worry about somebody putting in a link that says it's going to do one thing, but then it actually does something else, or anything like that?
There's definitely things that we need to worry about that from a spam perspective, right? And so that's part of the reason, again, we have a whitelisting process at the moment. We have other things that someone mentioned earlier about things like reputation scores, and obviously we have a very strong spam system, so we haven't really seen that happen to date. It's definitely something we're cognizant of and need to watch for.
One very technical questions. I noticed that this metadata is actually put in the header part of the HTML part of the message.
Yeah.
So why doing it that way rather than just another part of a multi-part message?
I'll let Claudio answer that question.
Do you need a mic? There's a handheld right there. Just make sure it's on.
It's not on. Is it? Yeah. So these actually started as an extension of schema.org microdata. And schema.org microdata, how it works is that you add extra properties to existing HTML content. So you basically annotate the existing HTML content. So this is how we started, and this is what we decided to support at the very beginning. And that is still supported. So one of the ways for you to add markup is to use schema.org microdata inline. Then we found out that many senders had some trouble in understanding how that exactly worked, or it wasn't that easy. And we decided to add another format that is called JSON-LD, which is the one you saw, which is just easier to read and write. And then we had two options there. One was to use a totally different way, like multi-part, so use a different part. But that would have been a different workflow if you use microdata or if you use JSON-LD. So we decided to standardize with content and the body. And then we decided that that content, if it's a single block, that for simplicity can be basically anywhere, and that includes the header. But so recommendation is to put it in the body, actually. But you can actually put it anywhere, and not in a multi-part though.
Could you use this with an email that has no rich text?
So it has to be an HTML part, because otherwise we will obviously take the text and use it as text. But it can be, so the whole HTML body can be this markup. That is not often the case, because we expect that the email does something even when the client doesn't support this. So we want this to render gracefully even if other clients support it. So if you have nobody, then I don't think that it's going to work very well outside Gmail, and we want that to work very well. So yeah, you can technically do it, but it's not recommended.
I think like if you did that, then you'd have the problem where if you were using some other client, like email would pretty much be empty and it'd be strange.
I wanted to ask about the whitelisting. So if I'm sending emails to customers, I might want to get whitelisted and add these action buttons to the emails I send out to customers. However, if I'm writing an email client myself and I want to allow my users to insert actions in emails they send, is that also possible at the moment?
So the short answer is I think probably we haven't seen any examples like that today. I don't know that our systems are quite set up that well to handle that, but it's definitely something that we'd be interested in. Like I think adding markup, adding structure to all emails is something we want to do, right? So I'd love to work with, talk to someone who's interested in doing things like that, and we can figure something out.
Still, your users will, at the moment, your users will still have to go through our whitelisting process. So your client will let them add markup easily. And we also have a tool that is called Structure Markup Helper Tool or something like that, that shows how to take an email or HTML page and add markup, the proper markup to it. But your client will let them easily add the markup, but then they as senders, they will have to go through the whitelisting process one by one. This is how the current status.
Cool. I'd like to learn more about that.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalini.
Thank you.
And Claudio.